it's not about just memorizing and knowing your lines. You need to really know the scene and the character and the emotions.
Welcome back to the Indie Spotlight Podcast, Season 2, Episode 6. I'm your host, Samuel Fronsman, and on this show, I want to help pull back the curtain and discuss the process of independent filmmaking by talking to some of the brightest and most talented individuals in the industry. Last week, I spoke to one of the greatest actors that I've ever worked with in Adam Joseph Turner, and today I have another amazing talent who shines in her acting, Heather Bayles.
Hello.
So, Heather, thanks for joining me here today. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? I mean, obviously, I know you, but for the audience who might not be as familiar with your work.
Yeah, so I'm actress, writer, producer. Currently, the most recent project that I'm helping to produce is the Obsidian Mirror. Director. I'm also a festival judge to some of the local festivals in the area. I do acting in short films, feature films, contest films, and commercials, and I'm a mother of four.
It's definitely a lot. So, what kind of got you into not just acting, but obviously as a writer, a producer, director, everything else that you do? What got you into the film industry in general?
Well, I started acting when I was five in plays, and then I did theater throughout high school. So as far as film goes, that's only been over the last 2 years. But I had always wanted to do film, but I always thought I had to move to California or New York, and I never did any of that. I didn't know that there was such a community here in Ohio. I was I went to college and graduated in 2022 with a nursing degree. So during like the last 2 years of actual nursing school, I wasn't like on social media at all. And during that time, I'm assuming maybe because of COVID in 2020, like maybe things blew up more on social media as far as getting the word around. I don't know. Because before it was always like certain websites I had to go to find casting calls and stuff. Um, but it was my friend Brett Boyna. He's like, you got to get back on Facebook if you want to find acting stuff. I'm like, what do you mean? And so he told me what groups to join and who to follow and things like that. And then it kind of just has been snowballing since then.
That's really awesome. Yeah, and it's cool that you bring up social media, and that's something I talk a lot about on the France Productions channel in general, especially like when it comes to the indie film world, is just how huge Facebook is. And I was kind of in a similar situation to you when I was first getting involved in the film scene here. I went to Mount Union, studied integrated media, and I graduated in 2021. And at that time point, I had made 2 different short films under my belt, but I didn't know when or if I'd ever really get that kind of an opportunity to do anything like that again. Because up to that point, all I knew that wanted to do movies, outside of college, now that I'm graduated, the only person I know is me. And an actor at the Factory of Terror, actually, Andrew Chapman, actually is the one who, when I started working as an actor there at the Factory of Terror, and I got to talking to him, he's the one that kind of showed me, well, hey, here's all what's happening on Facebook. Here's Cleveland Indie Club, that Johnny Woo runs, and here's, Ohio Film and Ohio Film Network, and now, as you know, I'm starting the Filmmaker Network Discord channel too, and kind of even spanning it away even from Facebook and moving into Discord. So it really is, if you want to get into this industry, you have to find the groups. And if you're not in Ohio, it might be, let's say you're in Indiana. I'm sure Indiana has an equivalent going on too.
Yeah, yeah. I think I remember Tim Cox mentioning it. He said when he lived in New York, they had these Facebook film groups and stuff, but they didn't work the way that they do in Ohio. I remember him saying something along those lines um, about that, like how they actually really work here in Ohio compared to New York. So I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty cool, and it's just good to know that we have that community here. And I guess my only thing is that I wish I got into it sooner.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's how I feel too. I mean, and that's why when I went back to Mount Union to speak, when Dr. Cooper, my old professor, when she invited me in to talk to her current classes, I stressed that, like, hey, join now, like right now while you're in college and you're even working on student films. Like, people at different universities they put casting calls for their student films in there, and that way you don't have to get stuck with just your college buddies in every movie that you make. You know.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's
So
awesome.
one thing I wanted to talk about too is some of your earlier experiences acting in film, and what lessons did you learn in some of like your early roles that you took?
um, in the earlier film roles, I would say that I definitely learned that it's not about just memorizing and knowing your lines. You need to really know the scene and the character and the emotions that go along with those lines. I think starting out, we focus on knowing our lines so much because, especially if you're coming from theater, because that is a huge focus in theater, is learning your lines and knowing your lines, and then everything else kind of comes along with it. Um, but yeah, I think I'm learning a lot more on understanding the scenes compared to when I first started.
Yeah. And it's I like that you mentioned that too, because it kind of, you didn't see, because at the time of our recording for this episode 5 still isn't released yet with Adam, but it's actually kind of touches back to something that what Adam Turner was talking about in terms of, being involved in the scene and listening to your scene partner, and working with your scene partner and elevating them by default ends up elevating you as well in your performance, and people kind of pick up on that and recognize that, and giving your scene partner that kind of space.
Yeah, because I think when we first start, we're so worried about our lines and making sure that we say our lines at the right time and saying the lines, the right words and things like that. But once you really know the scene, the words do actually just kind of come to you, and they make more sense, I guess. It all kind of flows. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something that I like too from there was an acting book that I read, and if I had the time to dig through my house, I'd find it. But it stuck with me, and even now that I'm kind of branching out and venturing more into that side of filmmaking, and getting in front of the camera, because I actually have a table read later this evening too. But it's about listening, and really, if you listen, and it's more about how you react. I think that was the quote. It goes, acting is reacting, and
Yes. Yes, yes. And that kind of touches on another thing that I've learned, that we do a lot in the beginning when we're first acting, um, is we always want to show, like we want to show angry, we want to show sadness, but it's really not about showing it. It's about actually feeling it, feeling that anger, feeling that sadness, and then it comes out. But it you could tell when it's forced. So I can like look back at my earlier acting going, yeah, I was like making myself sound that way instead of actually just feeling it and being in the moment and having it just come out because I was feeling it. And one of the best pieces of advice I got recently from acting class was, you don't have to like think of a specific time when you were angry or sad. You just have to remember the way you felt. So, like, you don't have to go to that place of whatever um, memory that you have of somebody or something. You just got to remember how you felt and then put that into that scene and that character.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. A lot of it really, it comes into, there's nothing dishonest about acting, and if it's dishonest, then it's not going to be good acting. Acting is as honest and real as it possibly can be, and if it's not honest and real, then the audience is going to pick up on it, and then the audience is going to know it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why it's like, a lot of time you're just being yourself in that scene. Like, um, unless you're a character actor, which I don't think I am as far as film goes. I don't really feel like I've done a character, but theater, yes. But I feel for the most part, I'm just being myself as that character, as like Amber. Like we'll get into that, but is that you asked me about my one of the more challenging roles, so I will
Yeah.
foreshadow that Amber was one of them.
At least maybe in terms of performance. I made it easy on you in terms of getting ready, right? Like what you're wearing, your hair, you just roll out of bed, show up to set.
Yes, that was definitely my favorite, but I have a lesson learned in that one too,
All right.
which
Well,
with that.
I was gonna say we'll touch on that too here, as well. But I wanted to kind of, before we really dive too deep into going into Amber and into In the Hands of Fate in general. I just kind of want to keep on that topic of getting into character and finding the character. What kind of techniques do you have just overall across the board into getting into a character?
So like again, when I'm thinking getting into character, I'm almost thinking of like a character actor, but I could be wrong on that. But like it's really for me, it's just getting into the scene, into the moment. So it's building that environment, and which is so much easier when you're on set and you're in the environment and you're in your outfit, whatever. Like if you're a businesswoman, you're dressed up like a businesswoman, you have your high heels on and you have that confidence and you're walking into a boardroom. Like it's so much easier once you're on set than if you're trying to do that for an audition. But that's it's like what you have to do for an audition is build that environment and just be able to imagine it there. And I find that to be even harder than when you're on set. But this just kind of goes back to knowing and understanding the scene, whether I need to create some type of history or backstory, or if the director gives me a backstory, that definitely helps to kind of have that there. And then it kind of becomes like a memory, your character's past that you can work with in that scene. And again, you know, definitely learning the lines is very important, but in learning them in a very, for me, learning them in a flat manner without putting too much inflection and tone and feeling behind it, because I'm still trying to figure out what the scene is and I'm still trying to figure out motives and things like that. And if I start learning it with a certain tone in mind, it's going to be harder to unlearn it when something might connect.
Yeah.
So just kind of having that monotone memorization and then start playing with the emotions and sounds of the scene, because it's easier to change it if needed. And then when you go to set, if you know it in and out, and maybe I thought the scene was going to be at a certain level and tone, and then I get on set and it could be different, it could be higher, lower, whatever. It's easier to adjust when I know it, if that makes sense. Kind of feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but
No, that's interesting though. That last bit that you talked about, that's something that I never thought of before. And even going into preparing for the part that I'll be playing in an upcoming Cleveland film. Yeah, I never thought about doing it that way. Learning the lines without the inflection and then playing with it. Because I've always kind of, whenever I'm memorizing lines and learning it, I'm usually doing it in character. So like if I'm learning the line, I'm like I fully will get into character and I will try to act it out a certain way. But now that I think about it, yeah, it does, it almost, you kind of it kind of gets you into a habit, makes it maybe harder to break. So that's definitely a good perspective, I think, for any actors that are either watching us on YouTube right now or listening to us on Spotify. That's something that you might want to try out and see if that works for you in terms of having the lines down, but having more fluidity to change your performance by not focusing on the performance at the same time as learning the lines. That's a cool approach.
Yeah, and there's many different ways that people go about learning their lines, and I have found recording them and listening to them, and I have a whole system on how I do it, and then practicing with it that way as well. So, and I try not to use all my energy when I'm practicing, rehearsing at home, or even like, and I try to tell my scene partner, the director, whoever, when we're doing rehearsals, I'm like, I'm doing this for the lines and blocking. Like, I'm going to do it like when we do a take, I'm going to do it the way I'm going to do it in the take. But for the rehearsal, I need to save that energy and that momentum and those feelings for the actual take. So that's a, another way to prepare yourself. So you're not, because I mean, it can be
Mm-hmm.
draining your energy depending on the scene. Um, yeah. So, and then you going into acting, knowing and being a director, going back to the trying it different ways. I mean, be a director to yourself once you know it, and record yourself doing it, and then look at it from the outside view as a director. Like, what would you have told your actor to do differently? Try it differently, and then you're like kind of one or two steps ahead of when you go on set, and you may be directed to do it one of those ways you practice at home.
Right.
You're like, oh, I got it.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of like why I'm doing it too. Is I want to, you know, you see, I do a lot of projects where I'm, whether if I'm not directing it, if it's not my own project I'm directing, usually I'm helping out somewhere on crew, whether it be with camera, or in the past I did sound. But it's one of those things where I really want to get that branch out a little bit more and do and get out of that comfort zone a little bit and do something, a fun new challenge. That's how I'm looking at it. It's a fun new challenge for me. Especially, I'm so used to being the one telling the actors how I want them to do their part. Now I'm gonna flip those roles, and I'm gonna be the one that's listening to the director and hearing the feedback and being directed. So I'm actually really excited about that. But I want to
That's gonna
say,
make you. Sorry, I was just gonna say it's gonna make you like level up as a director too. Like being yeah, you know that.
that's the hope. That's the hope and goal is when I go into directing my next movie, when I go into Crimson Night, that I'm coming at it from a new perspective, and trying some new things, and things I picked up, especially coming from an actor's mindset of what can even help you and anyone else involved on the project. What can help all of you out even better. But speaking of projects I directed, because we talked about it earlier, and I said we'd touch on it, but you're talking about the most one of the most challenging roles that you've played, and you brought up Amber in the Hands of Fate. So tell me a little bit about that experience. What was it about that experience that really challenged you as an actress, and what you brought out of it?
I'd say, gosh, being mean to a little kid, cussing at him, like and as I'm saying, I kept apologizing to him after we cut. I'm like, I'm sorry. He's like, it's fine. I'm used to it. Because he's a very experienced actor, so that was a plus. I'm glad it wasn't a new kid that's getting screamed at and yelled at. So yeah, I really felt that was a challenge. It was a completely new role for me in general, to be kind of this like total bitch to this ex-husband and call him trash and all that. I mean, challenging, but also fun. Like, I really like having that energy, and yeah.
But you did it so well. I mean, and it comes off in when you watch the movie, it comes off so naturally.
Good.
And
Good.
something I noticed even too, from people that I've shown it to is, you know, in the first time that we meet you in the movie, you, and for lack of a better term, yeah, you come off as a total bitch. But then the second time, I mean, yeah, sure, you yell at the kid in the beginning of that scene, but when you hear that, you know, dialogue between you and Adam, you almost, a lot of people that I've shown it, that I've shown the movie to, say, well, I really kind of feel for Amber in this now, and I see her perspective, I see her side, and you were able to bring out that nuance into her where she's not always just this, you know, total jerk. She's coming in it from a perspective, and she's just as hurt. So what helped you um, be able to do that? Like what all helped you in terms of playing that?
Um, I mean, really, you having those meetings with you and the backstory, and gosh, I mean, that helped tremendously, and it helped bring it out of the character, but also in a sense, that I knew my character was also trying to hide that, what, you know, her guilt and things like that. So yeah, I mean, there's not that many directors that give you, I don't know, like a one-page background on your character and then also meet with you, and like and I love how you gave Adam his own background, and then we didn't know each other's because our characters weren't supposed to know that stuff about the other person and what they're feeling. And I really like that because instead of it being on set and you saying, now, Adam, you're feeling this way about Amber, and Heather, you're feeling this way about Donovan, and him hearing it and vice versa. I don't know. I think it brought a new level to that. Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed my directing on that. But yeah, I do like to try things out like that. To me, I find, like as we talked earlier, the most natural acting is going to feel the most real. And in the situation that this called for, to me it made sense to give you each your own direction privately, and then not share that with each other. So then that way, there, you know, realistically, you know things that Adam doesn't know, and he knows things that you don't know, just as it would be in real life. And yeah, I think I'm glad that helped you out, and I know Adam really liked that as well. And I know with him, you know, I gave him so much backstory. He knows more about Donovan than probably anybody else in the entire movie other than myself. And so, you know, and I like doing that. And I guess this is where, you know, I like to provide that educational value in these episodes. And for directors, have meetings with your actors and talk to your cast, and explain the characters and how you envision that. But then at the same time, you know, I like it too when actors kind of bring in some of their own thoughts and suggestions,
Yes.
as well,
Yeah.
because make it your for an actor's perspective, make the character your own. You know, in some cases, and especially if the director isn't giving you a backstory, because like you said, not everybody is like, hey, I'm gonna meet with you on Zoom and we're gonna have this long conversation and go over the character, and here's like one page of notes about, you know, about the character. If a director is not doing that, then I mean, you almost have to do it for yourself, you know.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I think we all do. Even if we're just in a scene with one line, like we might make up a backstory on that character, even though they're just there to slightly move the scene forward a little bit. But you know, in our minds, you know, whether maybe we're a character in a supermarket and we have to say something to the main character, maybe we're grumpy or something. Like, why am I grumpy? Like, I'm not just gonna deliver it grumpy. Like, I'll create a little backstory for something like that.
Hmm.
It won't be as in depth, obviously, but it'll just be like, I went to the other store before I came here and they were closed. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah, well, and everyone's the hero of their own story. So you have to do that in order to make people feel, in order to make characters feel more like people, to feel more lively, to feel make the world of the movie feel more lived in and more natural to reality.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So let's talk about the auditioning process. What advice do you have for actors about the audition process for independent films?
Um, for independent film. So, I mean, I think that you should do an audition for an independent film the same as you would for any other film, big budget, big studio. So it's a matter of just learning how that's done and taking classes on how to audition. Because I think if it's an indie film, you should still give that same level of professionalism that you would on a big budget SAG film. You should be the same person because it's a work ethic for you anyway. So if it's not something you would do on a big studio production, then you shouldn't do it on an indie film either. But I'm kind of digressing from the whole audition thing. But yeah, so and it'll help you keep trained for when those bigger opportunities come along. So learn the correct way to audition. Um, and I think directors and casting directors in indie films should also learn what the correct way is for auditioning. Because when I was first starting out, oh gosh, I can look back on some of my old tapes, and I do sometimes, and I'm just like, I cringe at the way I audition because I didn't know any better. Um, and I think a lot of times the directors in indie films don't know the correct way, or maybe nobody really cares. I don't know, and it probably doesn't really matter because acting, what you're looking for, needs to be there. Um, but just learning how to audition, I think, will strengthen your auditions across the board.
So what kind of auditions have you kind of ran into? Because I know I when I hold auditions, I always do them on Zoom, and my reasoning behind that is I like the face-to-face personal interaction and the ability to offer direction to actors, right there in person. Because I don't just want to see how you naturally act. I want to see how you take direction. Even if you did it perfectly the first time, I'll change it and come up with something that I don't even want to have in the final movie, but I just want to see you try it, just because I want to see could you take that direction. But then at the same time, and I've seen this, and I help out some of my friends with these, and I've had to do it myself. And that's the self tape, and it's totally a different beast in and of itself. There's so much, it's so different than because you could take a Zoom audition or meet in person at a public place audition, and those are comparable. But a self tape is totally not the same. It's not even in the same league. So, what has been your experience just in general between different types of auditioning?
um, yeah, I mean, it used to always just be in person. I got so used to that. Um, and then when it switched to self-taping, it was just like I didn't know what to do. um, but with self-taping, you have more time with it. You can memorize it, you can learn it more. Um, and you can do multiple takes and then send in the one you think is best. When you do in person, I mean, sometimes when you go and do in person, they won't even have you give direction and do another shot of it. And I hate that because it's the perfect opportunity for them to find out if you're directable, like you said in a Zoom audition. And then in your self tapes, if you can send in a take, and then you include a second take and do it differently, and I guess that's kind of a way to show the director that you can do it differently. But what I wish they would do with the self tapes is at least do a callback,
Hmm.
even if it's through email, like, hey, can you do another take and do it this way? Try it this way. I think that would be enough to know if they can take direction or not. Now, commercial auditions are different.
Okay.
Those, yeah, they're different. You can use props. Sometimes you can have other people in it. Like it's that I I'm just tapping the surface on how to do commercial auditions. I have not, because I'm still kind of doing them like I do film, and I feel like I just really got into a good groove of knowing how to do a film audition. Um, so yeah, I'm really the commercial ones. I still have a lot of I have a lot of work to go.
So before we switch topics, because I do want to talk about some of your writing and directing, but before we switch completely out of acting, what you just said right now about commercial auditioning, that's not something we've talked about on this show before. But a lot of times commercials, especially for new actors, can be that's where the money's at. It's not necessarily in film or television right off the bat. It's in commercial work. So how do you go about getting parts in commercials?
And getting paid for it.
That is a good question. So you need to have a commercial agent. Or maybe you have an in for like a with a very small commercial production company that does smaller, like an indie kind of thing, but it's gonna definitely be a lower scale pay on that, because I have seen some of those. But um so you definitely want to get a commercial agent. So I'm with the talent group and I'm with Heyman Talent. So talent group covers me in parts of New York, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. And then Heyman Talent covers me in, so Talent Group is like Cleveland and Northeast and Southeast. Like, I don't know, you kind of split Ohio in half, and Talent Group is half of it. And then Heyman is like the other half, like the Columbus, Cincinnati, going up towards Michigan and into Indiana and Kentucky. um, I think I covered all of them. It takes a while to understand who does what, because sometimes you could get an audition request from your Cincinnati agent for a Cleveland job and you can't audition for through them. You need to then contact your Cleveland talent manager to audition to them. And sometimes it can be a little confusing and takes a minute to get a hang of it, but I've been with both of them for a year now. Um so once you have that agent, and I will say the best way to get them is professional headshots, because I tried with, I think it was the third time I submitted to Talent Group before they did sign me on. So if they tell you no once or twice, just keep going. I think some of them tell you when you can apply again. Um but it was the professional headshots that did it. Same thing with Heyman. I think they told me no once or twice, and then I submitted to both of them around the same time with the same new professional headshots with Shannon Alstred. So I highly recommend getting headshots done with her if you're gonna start going through the commercial agents. Now, those agencies will also send you auditions for films in the area, SAG films and stuff too. So I've gotten to do a couple that way. So it's exciting. But I haven't booked any SAG films yet, but gotten to audition. I feel like that's awesome to have that opportunity.
Yeah. What real quick too, what other, aside from just the headshots, what else all goes into getting an agent? What else are you submitting to them?
So you're going to submit your resumes, so any of the short films and indie films that you've done, and then if you have any footage from those. So since I knew they were primarily commercial agents, I used my footage from Mishak Malley's Workplace Romance, because I felt that the little scene of us eating the pretzels and hummus felt kind of little like a cute little it could be a cute little commercial. So I just kind of went with that. But I mean, it doesn't have to be that. It could be any film that you've been in that you have a good solid quality footage from. So yeah, having that. And then taking classes. So I had on my resume the acting classes that I was taking that I didn't have on my resume the first few times I submitted to them, and now I did. So I think that shows them that you are serious about the career, and that
Mm-hmm.
you're not just doing it to see if you can do it, or just doing it for fun, or you know, when you get off work or whatever. Like, because that was one of the things they said. They were like, doing commercial work is you're working during the day, Monday through Friday. So if you have a job where you work Monday through Friday, it can make it a little bit harder. Um, and it's not like an evening part-time job. Lucky for me, I don't have to worry about that. So if I do book a commercial, I don't have to worry about getting off work. But so if you work at a job where they're very flexible and willing to work with you, and know that you're also pursuing this other path, and that they can be flexible with you, because sometimes you might not know you're cast for something till the day before. So you almost kind of have to keep that date open until it's passed, because they don't let you know when you don't get it. They only let you know if you get it, like, because it's just, how many phone calls you'd have to make if they had to
Mm-hmm.
tell 100 people that they didn't get the part.
Well, I'll tell you a secret, and coming from low budget indie, I haven't done a paid project yet, so I don't have like giant pools of people
Right.
that are auditioning. But so it's probably easier for me to let everybody know than say if I had hundreds and hundreds of applicants. So I can see on that front. But what a little secret, even if I only have 20 people, and let's say I'll use a recent example. There was an audition. Let's say there was about 12 people. Okay, most of those emails that I send are the exact same message, copy and paste, with the exception of the hi insert name. And most of it's just the same copy and paste for you didn't get the part, and I usually do tend to, with exceptions, that I'll add something else personal, because sometimes depending on who it is, there's been cases where I haven't cast somebody to play a character that they were auditioning for, but then I offer them something else because I like them a lot, but I just like them as a different character. That's happened. But usually what happens and it's not to be impersonal, and it's just more of a time management, ease of time kind of scenarios for people when they don't get the part. Is just, here's, I have this message that I'm going to send, and you didn't have the part, but I really like you, and everything like that. And then that way because I like to let people know, because just from my experience, but I understand, yeah. And a lot of times you're going to have to get used to that if you don't have the part, you don't necessarily know you don't have the part until the day after. So
Yeah, you're like, or you start seeing the casting announcements. Like, there was one I auditioned for a couple weeks ago, and then I saw on their page that we're going to start announcing cast tonight, and I'm like, oh well, I didn't get a part because I haven't heard anything. They're yep.
Yep.
Sometimes that's how you find out too, is you start seeing the casting announcements or whatever on the Facebook's pages. But then it kind of, at least you stop wondering about it. But I've gotten to the point where because that's a big thing they say, is submit and forget, and that's so hard when you're first starting out. Because once you submit your first few auditions, like, it's like a constant, like, you're wanting to check your email, like, see if, and checking your phone, did someone call? But like, now it's to the point, like, I really can submit and actually forget. And then, if someone might bring it up in conversation, like, did you audition for XYZ? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did. Yeah, I never heard anything. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I've never thought about it again until someone says something.
Yeah.
And that's good. That's so good for your mind to clear it away.
Yeah, because I mean, I know, with different things, in general, if you just,
Gosh, I think the groceries were just delivered. Okay.
that's important too. That's important. No, that's actually, that's fundamental. And actually, because I do want to segue into other topics besides acting, but this is in general in the film industry. Because I'll leave that in here I'll leave that in the episode about the groceries. Because reminder, important educational note: don't forget that when we're working, we also need to eat. So do not forget about taking care of your health in the film industry. It is so easy to forget to take care of yourself.
So that's an important
It
reminder.
is. Yes. I don't even think about food until like I think about it more as an actor because like you need that fuel to keep going. But like I don't know, if I'm writing, it'll be like, oh my gosh, it's 2 o'clock. Like I haven't
Where
eaten
did the time
yet.
go? I get it.
I've been writing all day or whatever, you know?
And so speaking of, that's a great segue. So what inspires you as a writer? You know, what gets you into the mind of writing a script?
Every day something inspires me. It's like these little tiny things in life, and Shane and I will just be like, uh, we'll see something or something will happen, and then we're like, what if? And it's always based on what ifs. We're like, well, what if this happened or that? And then we almost have a beginning, middle, and end of something half the time, and we're just sitting there laughing. And then sometimes it'll spawn into something, and I'm like, I can't stop thinking about this. I'm gonna go write it. And that happened the other day. My daughter ordered with her Christmas money one of those reborn dolls where they look real.
Mm.
And I made a joke, like it finally came, and like she was asking every day if it was coming. And I made a joke to Shane, and I'm like, I swear, if they send a real baby, if that's a real baby in the box when it gets here, I don't know. Like it was just like, and then he's like, well, what if somebody got a box in the mail and inside that box was two more boxes, and then inside the one box was a severed head? And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then we had this beginning, middle, and end, and one was like kind of a comedic, one was more serious. We had a couple different endings, and I'm like, I gotta go downstairs and get in front of the computer and write it out. And I did.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah, they always say too is if you have an idea, write it down because you may not produce everything that you write, but it's all about that practice, and you never know when that one idea that you write ends up sticking and you decide, okay, this is the one. This is the one that I want to see through. So,
yes. I have so many things written, whether it's just a summary or an outline or a beginning of a script or the middle. Sometimes I start in the middle or at the end of something, and then you have to fill it in. But yeah, it's always seems to be like these little things in life. And I want to say I started writing probably in the first grade. Started writing short stories. I wrote the first story. I wish I still had it. It was written on index cards or post-it notes. I don't know that I stole from my mom. I'm like, oh, I got to write this down. And I wrote a story about my first grade class going up on that. We had a big hill and that we found a snake. And then our teacher taught us about snakes. It's just like this silly little story that I wrote. And then in third grade, I wrote a, a story that had chapters and everything. And I was heavily inspired by, and I wish I could remember what the series was, but each chapter was about a different student in this teacher's class. Do you know what I'm talking about?
not off the top of my head. I thought about it for a minute. That's what that pause was.
Yeah, so I kind of used that same format, and it was called Mississippi is Weird. So not the state, but it was the teacher's name was Mrs. Sippy, and
Okay.
she was weird. And
Clever.
so each chapter was a different student and his or her experience with Mississippi, and it was that teacher was influenced by my actual third grade teacher.
Okay.
And I
So,
wrote it in third grade, and I wish I still had it. I have
mm,
some stuff that I wrote because I would write books and draw in illustrations and then staple it all together. And my daughter does that now too. Like, and it must be genetic. It's just funny that she does that. And she started writing little plays and stuff too. It's so cute. But um, also too, my dreams inspire me. in my writing. So I think you know this, that Danny Don't was based on a dream that I had.
Yeah.
Okay. Only I kind of reversed the roles of who was what and everything. I won't give anything away, but um and then Ludella was actually based on a game I used to play when I was a kid, based on the movie I saw as a kid, the movie Nell. Do you
Mm-hmm.
remember Nell? You know Nell? So
I
it's
don't
kind
think
of
so.
based on that. You don't think you've seen it?
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, it was kind of about a feral woman. And she grew up with a language that they created. So in Ludella, and I don't think anybody has noticed, but Ludella speaks in code when I don't care if I give anything away at this point.
Okay.
Ludella Ludella speaks in code when she has her head on Detective Todd Richards' chest. And I mentioned that on set, but I know it was a crazy day, and I don't know if anybody has cracked what she's saying yet.
I still haven't.
Yeah, and if anyone does, then they'll pick up on something later.
Okay.
So if anybody that's watching this hasn't watched Ludella yet, that's a challenge for you.
Offer up a prize, like whoever the first person is to crack the code that offer like I don't know what you could offer, but offer like some kind of reward incentive.
Watch my film, crack the code.
Yes, send an autographed knife or something.
Prop knife autographed. Yeah, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I just wanted to see if anybody picks up on that, because when I watch movies, I look at all the little things. Even and now I see them all differently now that I've learned how to edit, now that I've directed, like, just I have such more of a appreciation for everything that's happening in a movie now
Mm-hmm.
and TV show. But usually, definitely the second, third time I watch something, I love watching the background. I love catching continuity errors, ones that aren't obvious because I'm talking $1 million budget things, ones that are not obvious until you look for them, like a melting ice cream cone. Oh my gosh, there was one scoop. Now there's two scoops. Now there's one scoop again. Now it's more melted. Now it's not melted. But you don't notice that the first time you're watching it because you're watching the story.
Yep. Oh, 100%. I like to watch it. I like to watch stuff for continuity issues, so it boosts my ego a little bit, and I feel better about myself. But I want to talk about a little bit, because you said about how you started editing now with Danny Don't, and then Ludella was your first foray into the world of directing, and coming from an acting background. Now basically you did the opposite last year of what I'm doing this year. You went from the back from an acting perspective into directing. I'm going into acting from a directing perspective. What was that like, and what lessons did you take away from Ludella that you then carried into Danny Don't, and that you're planning to carry on into future projects?
Oof, I would say I think I would rather direct something that I'm not acting in as well. Even though the part that I did in Ludella was small, hardly any other lines. I don't want to say small, obviously, very big and impactful, um, but I thought, like, giving the fact that I wasn't in so many scenes or had to worry about lines, in the sense that, oh, sure, this will be easier to direct, but no, I think I almost would have rather have focused more on the acting. So I think as far as that goes, I'd rather direct a group of actors that I'm not acting in as well. I definitely want that experience more so now that I think I should have done that first before trying to act and direct at the same time. I kind of jumped in, but I'm glad that I did have that experience to kind of learn from stuff. I think we did, the 2 days of shooting. Looking back, I would have loved to have done a third day to get everything to split up that second day more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scheduling can be a nightmare. That's one of the biggest things that I like to, for people that haven't done this before. One thing I find just in general, people that are outside the film industry, that, whether I'm filming at someone's location that they've never seen a movie set in their lifetime, or someone's first time on set, you don't realize how long this takes. It takes way longer to shoot a movie than what you could possibly fathom.
Oh my gosh, yes, yes. And I think in indie film, we're definitely still quicker at it than like the big studio films. Um, and I have my experience as being an extra in Superman. Oh my
Yeah, you
gosh.
made the trailer.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, being an extra and you hear from the other extras. So that was my first time. So I would put that up there too as one of my most challenging roles because of it being the first time out, like not on an indie set. Uh, and also it was really, really hot. But besides that, um, talking to the other extras who have been extras in other films, they're like, yeah, you don't know if you're going to actually make it even into the film. Like they could cut the scene that you're in. It could be blurry in the background. So then to have that teaser trailer come out and clearly see myself in it, that I did never even expected that because I wasn't sure, like even expecting to. I was waiting until the movie comes out in July to like see if you can squint and see me, but you know. So, but going back to the time that it takes, if I had to guess, I was there for 4 days, very long days. Um, I mean, the parts that I was in could probably maybe equate to about 2 minutes worth of the film
Wow.
for all that filming. Now, those scenes are probably longer as they extend out with the main characters, but yeah. In my mind, I'm like, yes, this is probably about 2 minutes worth of the film, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And a lot of it has to do with budget. It has to do with the scope of the movie as well. A lot more people are involved than our little ragtag squad
That
that
we
people
will
Oh
have
have on
on
an
an
my
indie
indie
set,
set.
gosh.
like
Like
it's
it's
Are there ever so many people on the crew? Like, so many. Yeah, I mean, the background have their own director who gets direction from James Gunn. He directs the background director, kind of. I mean, I think I felt like the background director kind of came up with their own idea of what they wanted us to do. Then we do a take, and then it was like, then you would hear him over the walkie. You would hear James tell the background director, have blah blah do blah blah, have someone do a little blah blah, So yeah, it's definitely a whole different animal. And your director's like not even out there, like he's there outside of the set, like in a tent watching on huge monitors what's going
mm,
on.
the video village.
Yes, so
Yep.
I think that's really a really awesome advantage for them to have is you're getting that real time of seeing what it looks like on a big screen.
Now I know Quentin Tarantino does not ever go to. He's not. He actually will stay out there with the actors, like what we do. He hates Video Village, and he's spoken out against directors that do that. He does not like that, and he doesn't do that. And I know there's some directors who are really traditionalist and don't want to do that as well. But one thing that I think you can take away from, especially you look at a big budget movie like James Gunn's Superman, and one thing that you mentioned is something that even it would have helped out so much on In the Hands of Fate, and it's something someone I'm gonna be bringing on to the crew for Crimson Knight, and that is an extras, a background director, because
Yes.
there is so much. It is a lot as a director to work with the main talent and then get the background actors to do what you need them to do as well. It's like splitting your brain into two different places. And if I would have had a background director on In the Hands of Fate, would have made life a lot easier. So Crimson Knight, there will be a background director on that one.
Good. Yeah, I definitely recommend that. And I did reach out to a couple people to see if if they were available. Like, hey, do you want to help me with my background people? But then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it.
Hmm.
So, but as far as carrying it into Danny Don't, I think having a co-director with Richard on that was a huge plus because I was in every scene but one. So it was kind of like I basically only 100% directed that one scene that I wasn't in, and then I'd say Richard did like 90% of the directing for the other scenes. I feel like that kind of helped more with the character development with Tom and Adam on that. And then Richard did his thing with given given some really good direction out. Like having Adam like deliver a line, but then holding before he walks away, like things like that are important for a director to give out that type of direction because as an actor, I feel like we're always rushing our lines and rushing our movement, but we don't feel like that we are. But I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I think it's like a nervous thing, and or like we feel like we're waiting too long, but really we're not. And I learned that in theater too. Like they're always like slow down, like
Hmm.
take your time. And then with film, you can take even more time because there's editing. So like have long beats, and those are important. But yeah, I forget what we were even talking about. I just kind of digressed there.
No, we had a good conversation. We were just talking about some of what you've, learned from your experiences directing and just working on different projects over the past year. Um,
Yeah.
but I wanna start before I close everything out on the podcast. I have to ask the question that I ask everyone, and it is the most challenging question that you're ever going to be asked. You're on a desert island, and you can only bring 3 movies to watch for the rest of your life. Which 3 movies are you going to bring with you and why?
Okay. So, assuming that everyone that has been on your podcast is being dropped off one at a time on this desert island, I'm gonna assume because Johnny K. Woos said the others, and that would normally be one of my pick, but since he will already have it there, I don't need to bring it, right? So my other choice, which would be like a tie anyway, would be The Village. I love M. Night Shyamalan. He is hit or miss. I don't love all of his movies, but the ones that I do love are very they're an inspiration to my writing because I like those twists and those twist endings. And I thought The Village was done so
Mm-hmm.
well because I thought the whole time you're watching it, you think it's just taking place back in time or maybe in a cult, and then they add that layer in of the girl being blind.
Hmm.
Like that even when she got out of it, like she still doesn't know what the world really is. But it's just like when she ran out of the woods and that truck or that car pulls up, whatever, I think he was a
He was
state
what?
trooper.
Yeah, he was either a state trooper. I think he was a park ranger because they were like in a national park.
You're like, wait, what? I really thought there was a monster out there this whole time. Like, what the heck? Oh my gosh. Like, so I like that. And I like that. And he influences my writing a lot. Um, and I like thinking during movies. So that movie definitely, among so many other movies, I'd like a movie that makes me think. I don't want the movie to tell me the movie every step of the way. It's so boring to me. Unless that's what I'm in the mood for. But yes, if I can think and discuss the movie even long after the movie's over, or if I have to pause and discuss it with whoever I'm watching it with, and I love making predictions. But anyway, so and then my second choice would be the movie Love Actually. That is like ultimately one of my favorite movies and inspiring to my writing in a different way where there's no twist really or surprise endings. You're just getting a glimpse into these people's lives but I like how it's written where there's all these characters who don't necessarily interact with each other, but they're all part of this story and they all connect somehow. So that's kind of how the feature film that um, Allison Marie Rogers and I wrote the short film When Eliza Met Penny. I expanded on the characters and I wrote it in the Love Actually style, where these characters all have this life and then how they all end up at one place and how they're all connected without maybe this character doesn't know that character, that kind of thing. I don't know how if I'm explaining it right, but anyway, and I love Hugh Grant and I love British accents and I just absolutely love that movie. And then I would need to bring something for comic relief, so I think I would bring The Other Missy. Have you ever seen that? Or
I
the wrong, is
haven't.
it The Other Missy or the wrong Melissa? Oh my gosh. I don't know if I even have the title right.
Well, I can look it up. I have the internet.
I should have looked it up beforehand, but
No, it's okay. You said The Other Missy?
yeah, it's either The Other Missy or the wrong Missy.
Well, as it would turn out, it's the wrong Missy. Well, when I looked up but if it makes you feel better, when I Googled The Other Missy, it came up with the wrong Missy. So I think you're not the only one that got that mixed up. I think a lot of people make that because Google automatically fixed it without me doing anything.
And I just love that because I love that dynamic between her and David Spade's character because he is the straight man and her role is like would be like a dream role to be that goofy character, but then she also gets her character arc and you get to see that she is a real person and everything. And so everyone that joins on this island, I would make all of us act that movie out at least once a week. We would watch it and then we'd all act it out because it's just a funny movie.
So you made
And you
me.
got if you're stuck on an island, you got to have some humor.
That is true. Because you've made me think and kind of think about this perspective a little bit now, because I never thought about it like everybody's being dropped off on the same island. I was always thinking everyone's got their own island, but now, because the first thing I was about to say as soon as you said, yeah, well, if we're all being dropped off on this island, I was gonna say the others, and I was about to say that's bold of you to think that I'm letting you all have the island together. But I kind of like the idea, although now we have 2 copies of Django Unchained on the island because, no, this is absolutely hilarious. So, in the episode that I did with Jake Reynolds, he had asked me, hey, has anyone picked Castaway yet? I said, actually, no one's picked Castaway. He said, okay, well, then I got to go with the obvious one. But before he had brought that up, he had picked Django Unchained, and it didn't dawn on me that Richard, when he was on the show, also picked Django Unchained. So if we're all on the same island together, we now have 2 copies of Django with us.
Well, you know what? That's okay because a big wave could come in and take one copy, and now you have a backup copy. So
Exactly. And if somehow I end up having to answer the question because someone throws it back at me in a future episode, you're not gonna this time. But if someone throws it back at me, I would be very disappointed if I get stuck on this island and I don't have Django Unchained on the island because, I don't have to bring that now unless I decide I'm gonna bring a 3rd copy of it.
yeah. I don't know who's bringing all the TVs and DVD players and stuff. Are we on the island of like the show Lost? I mean, maybe we find an underground bunker that has all this.
So think of it like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and like there's the island of misfit toys, right? Only it's the island of misfit DVD players.
Yes. Okay. So we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So
Thanks again for coming on the show, Heather. Where can people follow you online on social media to keep up with your work?
Yes. So you can find me on Facebook. I mean, just type in Heather Bayles, Bayles. And yes, Bayles is the correct way to say my last name. Usually people say it wrong. I don't know. I don't usually correct because like my whole life I've just heard it wrong. I don't know. But yeah, so there and then on Instagram, just type in Heather Bayles, I should pop up. On Threads and Blue Sky. And then on YouTube, Arcadia Street Productions would be where I'll be where my work is being posted. So you can see like the trailer I posted for that I put together for the New Face Newsflash that's going to be at the Short Sweet film, which yes, everybody that's watching this should come to the Short Sweet Film Festival. I have 4 films that I was a part of that are in the festival, and then I was a part of 3 of the competition. So I have 7 films that will be screened at Short Sweet during that week. So everybody needs to come and see those.
For those who are watching us on YouTube or listening on Spotify, where and when is the Short Sweet Film Fest?
It's February. Let me look real quick because I don't want to give the wrong date, but I know it's at the end. End of February, beginning of March. It kind of runs into that whole, February 24th through March 2nd. And if you go on their website, you can get the full rundown of what is being screened on each day. So I see a lot of people on there that I've worked with that are going to try and make it to everything. And even one of my acting teachers that I've taken class with has a short film showing that he was in. So I'm going to try and go out and see that and have some support for him, Bryant Carroll. And the film is called When Everything Was Blue. And I've seen like snippets and stuff that he's been posting on Instagram and like the trailer and stuff, and it looks amazing. So I'm excited to see that as well as everyone else's stuff that I haven't seen yet.
That's awesome. And for those who are tuning in right now, so we're recording this right now. It's still the beginning of February, but as of when this podcast is uploaded, so when you're watching us or when you're listening to us on Spotify, Short Sweet Film Fest is next week. Okay, yeah. So as of when we are actually live on YouTube and Spotify, that is next week. So yes, please mark your calendars and check that out, and definitely try to get out there and show some support to indie film.
Yeah, February 24th through March 2nd.
Yep.
Yes. Go and network. It's a good networking opportunity too. See the people's work, and you might find some new actors and actresses that you want to work with, or new directors and filmmakers and writers. So definitely a good opportunity for anyone.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you again for coming on the show here today.
Yes, absolutely.
And I want to thank everyone who tuned in to Season 2, Episode 6 of the Indie Spotlight podcast. Remember, if you're enjoying this content and you want to learn even more about independent filmmaking, if you're on Spotify, make sure that you are following us so you don't miss another episode on the podcast. Or if you are on YouTube, make sure that you subscribe, that you drop a like, and you hit the bell for notifications. Stay up to date with everything that is going on in Franz Productions. And if you are on YouTube as well, go ahead and leave a comment. If you have any advice or anything that you want to give to any filmmakers as well that are getting into independent filmmaking. And make sure that you stay tuned for even more episodes of the Indie Spotlight podcast. And don't forget to go back and check out some of our previous episodes where we talk to some more amazing talent working in indie film in Ohio and the Ohio indie film scene. But anyway, guys, until next time, as always, that's a wrap.